everybody, welcome to another episode of the GameSmith, where today we're going to be turning figures from this barrel of True Legends Mythical Warriors into statues. I'll see you at the table. This build starts with using these fantasy toy figures from the True Legends Mythical Warriors set that I found at the local toy store. The detail on the plastic figures is okay, but given that you get 50 of these figures with the set, I'm not overly concerned about the detail. The figures are larger than the standard 28mm figure, so they look great for their size, but they're not big enough to use as actual large-size creatures. With all of these to choose from, I think I'm going to focus on the Elven Archer for this project. You can see here that there are a few obvious surface details that we can highlight when we paint our build. We want to start with a white primer and undercoat. If you want a full explanation of undercoats and primers and how to use them together, please check out my video on those topics. I'll put a link for you in the top right corner. I've mounted my toy statue onto this candy tube using some poster putty, that tacky adhesive you use for hanging posters on a wall. We do this so we don't have to hold the model while we're painting it and mess up the surface with our fingerprints and the like. I'm going to start by adding some Citadel shade to the build in order to bring out the details of the model. I'm using this Newland oil shade for this build, but any shade or dark wash will do. So we put the shade into a dish and we load our brush with it, and then we just simply paint over the model. We want to start at the high points and let gravity pull the shade into all the nooks and crannies of the model. If you paint the model while it's upside down, the wash will actually pool in areas where shadow shouldn't appear. So make sure that the model remains right side up while applying the wash and while it dries. This will have the effect of highlighting those recesses and shapes so that they're more clearly seen. After our wash or shade has dried, we're going to add 2 layers of gray, a dark gray first and then a light gray. With a clean brush, load the tip of your bristles with the dark gray first. We just lightly dab our paint over the surface of our statue. We don't want total coverage with the dark gray, we just want to dab our paint over a few high points so we can let the layers we've already added show through. Of course, we want to make sure that we avoid filling in any of the gaps that we filled with the wash or shade. Next, we clean off our brush and switch to the light gray. For the light gray layer, we want very little pigment in our brush. Make sure that only the tip of the bristles have any paint on them when you load it. The less paint that ends up on the model here, the better. You're not doing so little like it's going to be a dry brush, and you want to make sure that there's enough that it actually highlights the darker gray underneath. The goal here is to layer the grays so they can both be seen. The dark gray with little splotches or speckles of light gray on top of them. Now we can add a dry brush layer of white acrylic paint to highlight our edges. For dry brushing, we load very little paint onto our brush and we remove the excess so very little pigment is left in the bristles. We drag the brush over the edges and the highest surface features of our statue. For a detailed explanation of dry brushing, please check out my foundations video on the subject. I'll put a link to that video in the top right corner for you. With the highlighting done, we can see how the combination of all these techniques has combined to highlight the different surface features of our statue. Next, we want to mount our statue on a base of some kind. For all you pack rats out there, I'm sure you collect caps and lids from all types of containers just like I do, specifically for crafting purposes. I just need to find a lid that can be the right size to act as a base for my statue. I'll try different caps and lids to find the right one. This is a good size. So is this one. I think I'll try this one. Ooh, that's good too. And this one. I think this is the one that I like. Since I'm gluing two plastic surfaces together, I'll use some plastic model glue since that type of glue is specifically formulated to adhere plastic together. Make sure you apply the glue so that it has complete coverage so that it'll actually stick to the surface. You don't want it popping off at your game table. After the glue dried, I covered the base with some bathroom and kitchen caulking to blend the figure and the base together. I'll just grab a hobby knife to remove the caulking from the ridges around the base. I just use a thin layer of the caulking so I can make the plastic appear to have a rough stone-like texture. The ridges look like fluting in columns, which actually helps sell the toy model as a statue, so I want to make sure I don't have any caulking stuck in there. I'm going to start with a basic cheap acrylic black paint base coat so that the white caulking and the blue cap will be the same color when I paint them to look more stone-like later on. When you paint the base, make sure to get all the paint into the nooks and crannies and the fluting of the plastic lid. Next, just like we did for the statue itself, we want to start with a dark gray. We dab our base to create a camouflage-like pattern, wanting to avoid complete coverage of the base and let some of that black show through. Now we use the light gray and we repeat the process. Again, we want to avoid complete coverage, but make sure some of the color gets into the fluting of our base. If you guessed or know that we're now going to be adding a dry brush layer to a model with our white acrylic paint, you've been paying attention and get a gold star! Now our statue is ready for the table! This was my take on a basic statue for scatter terrain. I hope there were a few things that caught your attention in this video. I'm very interested to hear about any scatter terrain statues you've created for your table in the comment section down below. If you like what we're doing here at the GameSmith, please hit that subscribe button, and hitting that thumbs up button will keep the gladiators off my back too. Our next video here at the GameSmith is to take our basic statue up to the next level and change up both our paint job and the base that we mount our statue on. Until next time, I'll see you at the table!